Guys, how are you? My name's Jennifer Cunningham. I'm an artist based in Galway, in the west of Ireland. I work in a wide variety of different media. Today, I decided just to kind of look at the notion of home and just to try and think of, like, you know, during the 5K lockdown, what I found was I actually became much more aware of my own surroundings, and I developed a greater appreciation of my local environment, you know, because we were restricted to 2 kilometre radius here in Ireland, and then 5 kilometre radius for literally for a good few months. So I suppose that kind of had an impact on me, and so I decided to, in this workshop, decided to kind of maybe look at, like, what is your ideal version of home. And you know, the idea of home, it's probably somewhere that you kind of feel safe. So it doesn't have to actually be like a traditional portrait of home. It could be like somewhere that you feel is home. Like, for example, once the 5K restriction lifted, I felt most at home swimming in the sea or swimming in my local lake. So the exercises that I'm going to be getting you to do today are really only their starting point, and it's a process. And I suppose, I think that if you go away from this workshop having learned just one thing, then the workshop itself is a success. I wouldn't expect people to finish all the steps and stages during the workshop. If you do, great. If you don't, you may feel free to work back into it. And we're going to be kind of basically working in a couple of layers. So I've broken the piece down into a couple of layers, and then we'll be collaging those elements back together. But what I thought I'd do first is I thought I'd actually show you, I thought I'd show you a PowerPoint presentation of some ideas of home, actually, just so you can actually maybe just get some inspiration there. So basically the theme of the workshop is kind of what has actually made you feel at home recently. Can you go on to the next slide? Okay, I'm going to flick through this quite quickly, okay? No, I think you missed, oh yeah. So I suppose I'm just really going to look through some of these artists and just talk a little bit about the idea of home. We're just going to flick through them really quite quickly. This is Matisse. You can see that he's looking out a window. There's a lot of bright colors being used. He was an artist that was kind of expert on collage. Okay, next slide. I know that you're wanting to get painting. Creativity itself takes courage. Next slide. What I dream of is an art of balance, of purity, of serenity, of troubling or depressing subject matter, a soothing, calming influence on the mind, rather than like a good armchair which provides relaxation from physical fatigue. Okay, next slide. So again, this is just kind of another image of a window. So next slide. And you'll get access to these afterwards. Another very fun collage-based piece. You know, good use of color, good use of contrasting colors. So next slide. So really, home is a shelter from storms, all sorts of storms. So next slide. Home is where one starts off from. Next slide. It's a funny thing, home changes, nothing changes, everything looks the same, even smells the same, but you realize what has changed is you. Okay, next slide. Art is the only way to run away without leaving home. Next slide. Leave home, leave the country, leave the familiar, but only then can routine experience buying bread, eating even saying hello becomes new all over again. Next slide. And this is just kind of using collage. There's a couple of ideas based, you know, using common household utensils. Next slide. These are just, I thought these were quite funny. Just again, based loosely around the theme of home. Next slide. Again, some collage based work. You can see the kind of the image on the very left is kind of different collages of actual different homes. Next slide again. I thought these were quite quirky. They were quite illustrative, and they were, yeah, I quite liked them. Next slide. And this is kind of similar to the sort of style of work we might be doing today, and we'll move on again. And you can see again the artist has collaged different elements in this, and I thought this work was quite nice because it's very layered, but at the same time it's not kind of trapped in that kind of you know, trying to make things look actually like things. It's more about playing, it's more about having fun. It's kind of quite process based. Next slide again. This I thought was a good idea. You can see the way they've collaged lace in, and you can see the background elements in here as well. Next slide again. You can see the way they've actually collaged in bits of books and old magazines and painted back over them, and they've aged them, and it's quite a domestic environment. So, and next slide again. And this is similar, that they've actually, you know, they've made something that's quite domestic look quite interesting. So this is kind of where is home. So for the first image, I was going to get you to actually paint, like say a sky for where your home is actually situated. So just to kind of consider what kind of sky you'd like to paint, whether you'd like it to be a night sky, whether you'd like it to be a sunset, a sunrise, a sunny day, or cloudy. And where is your sky? Is it in, maybe it's in Iceland with a hint of aurora borealis, or maybe it's in hot sunny France, you know, two very, very different places, and what time of year. So I've just done up 4 examples of skies here. So you've got your sunny summer sky. You've got your typical Irish sky, you know, just as you're about to go into the sea in winter and it's about to start sheeting hail. You've got kind of like an Icelandic type sky, night stars with a hint of aurora borealis in it. You've got your sunrise sky. I can sprinkle salt. This is done with kind of a little bit of layering. You can see I've let the colors kind of blend into each other. I sprinkle salt back into it, and I used a toothbrush to flick the paint onto the watercolor paper, and it helped, and salt to create texture. So I'm going to actually leave this up here for a minute. I will actually start painting a sky myself, and at some stage it will actually you'll see my hands creating a sky. But these are just 4 examples of a sky that you can maybe work from. So you can actually get your paints out now, and you can get your paints out, and you can actually just start painting your sky on your watercolor paper. And I'm going to just play some music for you, if I can get Spotify to work. Can people hear that? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so you can just begin painting. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just using a toothbrush to kind of, a brush to flick little bits, and I'm sprinkling a little bit of salt onto my work here. And that kind of just makes the image kind of just makes the image a bit more kind of speckledy.
Is there a particular type of paint you're using?
I was using acrylic, actually. I was just using acrylic and a little bit of watercolor. So I was just kind of using a mix of different paints. Just I find water-based paints is actually the best type of paints for these kind of for workshops, because they'll actually dry quite quickly, you know. And I find using acrylic and water-based watercolor, the actual, you can see these kind of watercolors that I'm using here. See those? They kind of give a lovely kind of effect with the paint, because they're quite strong, actually, the colors in them. I find using sponges and stuff, like using sponges and things like that, can be also quite nice. It kind of gets you to loosen up. It gets you to kind of layer up a little bit more quickly as well. And it can kind of move you away from using your brush as well. Move on to the next step. What I'm going to get you to do is to actually maybe put your work aside and get your next bit of paper. Bear in mind, you can actually come back to this later. Again, it's just about breaking stuff into stages. You can use a hairdryer to dry your work off as well. If
the salt is cool. I never did that before. I like it.
So how are people getting on? Would anyone like to sort of share? Yeah, you getting on okay?
In grim weather, but sometimes there is this sparkling red sunlight energy.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, that's lovely. That'll be really interesting.
And the salt is also very nice.
Yeah, the salt. I find the salt is great, actually. It really kind of and flicking the brushes and stuff, it really loosens you up, because I suppose the whole idea is just to be loose and to play, and just not be too worried about the end project at the end of it.
Well, I slept in this morning, and then I got 3 texts of photos of the sunset. Go, wow, what an amazing, or sunrise. So when I got up, the sky, like, it was pink and purple and amazing. When I got up, it was white with yellow, but it was beautiful. It's hard to get it, but
I saw that
thinking about it. So
it was an amazing sunrise this morning. I saw it actually driving in the car. It was like a band of yellow along the horizon, and it made me long to be in the actual sea. Actually, I really wanted to go swimming when I saw it, because the light was incredible, you know. Is there anyone else who'd be willing to share? How about Anne? How are you doing? I can't see you, but how are you doing? Anna Byrne?
Oh no, I'm muted. Can you see?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's I actually did have a dip in the sea this evening, and this is what I saw came out. It was an absolutely beautiful sunset, different to Jane's sunrise, but this was a sunset, and it was like streaks across the sky of this gorgeous orange and yellows, and it was just beautiful, beautiful sunset this evening in Galway Bay.
Lovely. Now, I just want to say that if you haven't got your sky finished, that's okay. Not to put pressure on it. It is something you can come back to. You can rework. This workshop is actually just about giving you guys ideas. So if you don't have your sky finished, that's okay. You can come back to it at a later stage, okay? I suppose what I'm just trying to do is get you to kind of work in a kind of collage layered fashion, basically. Okay, so I am going to try and share my PowerPoint again, and fingers crossed it's going to work. Say a little prayer. Yes, we're in business. Okay. Okay, so for the next piece of paper, I just want you to just really just consider your environment. So I just want you to maybe think about like where your idea's home is situated. Maybe your idea of home is situated in the sea or in your lake, so maybe you just want to paint the sea. If you are painting bodies of water, like you can actually get the colors from the sky and reflect them in the sea too. You can look at things like distant mountains. You can look at like a forest or lots of trees. You can look at kind of things like green fields. You can look at the city or a row of houses or lots of buildings. So these are just some very simple, quick ideas I did up for you. So oh dear, that flicked on quick. So this is kind of like a sea scene. This is an acrylic scene. I just did it really quick with acrylics. I did the background, kept the paint quite watery. Again, you can use a hairdryer, particularly if you're on mute. You can use a hairdryer to dry out your paint off in between layers and then layer back over it. This is just a very simple sort of sea scene. I had a little bit of fun playing around with this, and I found an old book, and I used the pages of the old book and just tore them up and made them into like the sails. Again, I like the splashing, so I splashed paint on the bottom for the spray. This is one I used a sponge to kind of move the paint across the page, to move the paint across the page, and then I actually used a kind of a dry brush to kind of get those kind of reeds in the background, and it's quite layered. This is just like a very simple kind of little town scene. Galway is a sort of walled city. It's a very small medieval city beside the sea, and you've got all these kind of higgledy-piggledy houses, especially down near the Spanish Arch. So I was kind of thinking of those small little coloured-y higgledy-piggledy houses when I was doing this. And you can see I've got bits of books, and I stuck them to the paper. I painted back over it, and then like the details are added later with a pen. So again, I wasn't trying to get it all finished in one go. Art is something that you kind of work on it, and then you come back to it, and you work on it, and you come back to it. So what I might do is I might actually just get you to kind of consider your idea of home. Again, you can actually collage in pictures from magazines if you want. This doesn't have to be, I am from a painting background, so I like to paint, but this doesn't have to be painted. I mean, if you had some National Geographic magazines, you could just cut those out. You could cut those out and stick those down on a bit of paper, and you could paint back over them, or photocopies, or, you know, just different bits and bobs. It doesn't have to be painted. So I'm going to get you to work on that now. Does anyone have any questions before we start the next stage? Are people all good to go? Yeah.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
are we
Yes.
on doing this on a new piece of paper now?
Oh God, yeah, thanks. I love questions because it helped me explain stuff better. So thank you very much, Helen.
Oh.
Yes. So I appreciate that, Helen. Yes, so for each section, you need to be working on a brand new sheet of paper. So yes, you work this onto a new sheet of paper, because at the end of the process, the idea is that you actually get those bits of paper and you collage them all together to make one image. Okay, so you collage them together to make one image. So yeah, for each section, you work on a bit of paper so that you have the option. Now again, they can be standalone pieces too. You don't have to collage them together, but yeah, it would be good that you work on a new bit of paper for each one. Yeah. Thanks very much, Helen. I appreciate the question. I'll have to give you a gold star. Does anyone else have any questions before we start? No? Are you okay? Thumbs up? Yeah. Okay, so you can use a pen to draw back into your work, and you can stick bits of paper onto it and a hairdryer to dry it. I'm just going to draw back into the work with a marker. You can just draw back, and I've stuck some bits on.
what I've made.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, but I never worked as fast as I do like now. Kijk hoor. There is someone at the.
Oh, oh, wow.
Nice job.
Oh, wacht even hoor. Wait a minute. It's
Wow.
Dutch.
It's lovely.
So that's
It's
what I
very
made.
Dutch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very Dutch. Yeah. So, but it's fast, but it's also the workshop is fast because you want to do some stages, and
Yeah.
I mostly work 3-4 weeks on a thing, so it's very different. So it's for me, it's okay.
Yeah, I would have to say, like, Pauline, I'm actually very similar. I would spend a long time on my paintings. For me, that to work in such a fast way, it's actually interesting. It's interesting because it kind of maybe loosens you up a little bit,
Yeah,
and it changes your process a little bit
it
as
does.
well. You know, yeah.
It does. It's
Um,
you cross boundaries. I cross
You do,
boundaries. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I guess I suppose the whole idea of it is just to kind of get you to kind of think of it in terms of like a process, maybe, you know. And oftentimes when I suppose when I'm an artist, I'm like a magpie, so I collect loads and loads of different ideas. So like say when I'm out, say like Jane would know this, like when you're going shooting video, you shoot like 100 minutes footage, and you might only use like 5 minutes of it at most, like, you know. So when I'm drawing, it's the same process. You do loads and loads of, you go down all these different avenues. You experiment, you take risks, and then you actually then kind of later kind of come to a conclusion, I think.
And so I like it. It makes me more daring, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's a good word.
Yeah.
But I like it. Yeah.
It's a little nerve-wracking, but it's fine. It's grand.
Yeah.
As long as we're just remember it's a process rather than, you know, I suppose you can sometimes, you know, when you're working towards exhibitions or whatever, you can get very caught up in the kind of the product at the end of the day, whereas sometimes it's just nice just to kind of not worry too much about that, you know.
Yeah, it's just sketching. It's like sketching.
Yeah, this is kind of like sketching with a variety of different media, actually. You know, it's like sketching with paper, with paint, you know. It's just like it's visual, it's sort of visual sketching. Guido and Benny, let's see.
So this is my
Guido, yeah. Oh yeah, I love, can you hold that up again, Guido? What I really like about that, Guido, is the way you've used a lot of different collages into that, and you've layered it up, actually. That's lovely. Okay, we'll move on to the next stage. Now, if you want, like, you will get time to actually work back into these as well at the end of the workshop. So the next stage, I suppose, is you're kind of like thinking about an interior. So I suppose we're breaking down the painting into sort of 3 main elements. So when I'm painting as an artist, I'll typically do this. I think of it like background, my midground, my foreground, which is a very sort of traditional way of working. But so I'm going to go back here into this guy here, and let's see. So for your interior, your interior is done on another bit of paper. So you need a 3rd sheet of paper. Some ideas for your interior. You can just go with a very simple window ledge using colored paper. You can make a tablecloth made out of pattern paper, wrapping paper, newspaper, or even images from magazines. Like, say, for example, if you were making a table for your interior and you happen to have like a Sunday Times magazine with a recipe in it, that's a little bit of a hint. You could cut out some of the imagery in the Sunday Times magazine, stick it down and draw back over it with a permanent marker. You could, if you don't have pattern paper, you can paint it. You can use paint to produce your imagery. And things like, do you want to consider like a window frame or a curtain? You can even use things like, if you happen to have them, old fabric scraps, paper doilies, or pattern paper. And again, attaching these to the paper will be tricky. So you might need things like duct tape or staple gun or heavier glue. So these are some of the ideas. So this is a very, very quick and simple. I just used photocopies. So I emailed a PDF handout. So if people have that printed out, they could actually trace back over that or cut it out and use that. So these are just two very, very simple ideas that, you know, that you can use, say, for your interior kind of image. You know, when you're including objects in your interior, just kind of think about what kind of objects, if any, would you like in your interior. So like, say, some ideas would be like a vase of flowers, a kettle, and a cup of tea. Maybe you'd like, this time I'll be giving you a little bit more time. So when I'm giving a workshop, I tend to kind of be a little bit cruel at the start and get people working very, very fast to loosen them up. But as the workshop progresses on, I will actually be giving you more time. So you'll get a little bit more time for this. So if you wanted to kind of sketch for this one as well, you could like sketch your ingredients from your favorite recipe, like, you know, your favorite cake, you know, you can sketch fruit, veg, or soup. You can include like a personal memento. So if you happen to have a photocopy or an image of a personal memento that you liked, you can include something like, you can do a self-portrait. Maybe you want to do a figure drawn out looking at a window, which is yourself. I just want you as well with this to bear in mind less is more. Often one object can sometimes be enough. And you can collage printed elements in and paint over them too, you know, and I was already mentioning the cookery book recipe. So here are two very simple examples here. Cup of tea. Every Irish person's addicted to tea, particularly since having my daughter. I just can't get enough of the stuff. And yeah, this is just like a simple sort of figure here. She's just holding a flower and it's just done with pattern paper. So it's really, really, really can be relatively simple, this last one. So you do this last one on a third sheet of paper. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that before we start? You all okay? Okay. Okay, so right, so I'll get you to get your bit of paper and to work with that. So yeah, okay.
Does it matter if we're mixing up whether we're doing landscape or portrait?
I would keep the formats the same. So I've kept, it doesn't 100% matter, like it's not, but I've kept mine, say, landscape for this one. Good question. Thank you very much, Helen. Yeah, and I've kept this one. This one here is actually, that one is actually a landscape as well. So the idea, I suppose, is that if I choose to, I can kind of get this and cut this out and collage it and stick it and combine it with this one at a later date. quick flash hairdryer. you've got some part of an interior done. You mightn't have it finished, but that's okay, because the last stage you'll be able to kind of compile your bits and bobs together, and there's a nice bit of time to that. So I guess I'm going to just sort of talk a little bit about what I've done during the last one. So I don't know, did I show you what I did in the one before that? So the one before that, I did this kind of like a little kind of cottage, idyllic cottage kind of scene. And then for this one, I just got out bits of paper and collaged them together. I sort of started drawing sort of a little bit of a self-portrait here, but I kind of feel, and I don't know, maybe I'll get people's opinion, I kind of think it doesn't really work. It's probably a bit crowded, that this on its own, it's probably going to be sufficient. So I suppose the lesson to be learned from that is that like less can frequently be more, that sometimes you'll start off in an idea and then it's often the things that you decide to leave out actually when you're working can make a piece much stronger, that you know that you might go down a certain road and then decide, oh yeah, okay, that's not working, so I'm going to kind of take that out, even if you've spent time drawing it. So I suppose not to be too precious about your work and to be trying to experiment the whole time. I would love if people would be willing to maybe show some of the little bits that they've been playing around with.
So I'll show you the three. That's the sky.
Wow.
This is the sea.
Very atmospheric.
And this is the window.
Some really good ideas going on there, Helen. Well done. I love to see other artists work and to see, you know, how different people work on different teams. And when people kind of use this process in print, like I have a friend called Roisin Coyle, and you can maybe Google her work actually, but there's something about your sea that reminds me of her work actually. I'll type that into the chat in a while.
The person who's looking out of the window, it's a rather depressing world, but
Yeah.
there is a lot of joy inside the house.
Lovely. Yeah. Looks like yeah, look, it's quite layered actually. It's lovely. It's beautiful. Well done.
I don't know what it's like, but it's kind of, I was looking at your lovely cups, and I have a thing for cups at the moment and bottles, and then I was kind of trying to incorporate a kind of a window thing, and I saw this in National Geographic. It was a window scene, so I've just kind
Lovely.
of the two on and then just kind of did a background. But what I'm kind of a bit confused about is how you incorporate, this is my scene with newspaper just pasted on my other one, but I'm kind of saying, how do you incorporate?
Yeah, because that actually is in itself a finished piece, and I don't think I'd actually touch that. And sometimes that can happen within this workshop, that you'll have a finished piece like that that may not need to be worked up. So I suppose when I was talking about collaging, the collaging aspect, it is an option. It isn't something that's compulsory. So Pauline might be left in the same sort of situation. Some people might be left in the same sort of situation, and that's okay. That's okay. Quite frequently, you might, I suppose, it's kind of like a process, and that you might choose to just collage 2 of your drawings together and not 3, and there will be time to kind of add elements or ideas from your last one, your interior scene, into it, because I'm not really sure would that actually work with your other 2 scenes, because it's actually quite a nice nifty little piece itself, and I really like the fact that you've actually collaged an image from National Geographic into it. I think it really contrasts very, very well with your cups and saucers. I wish I thought of doing that actually. It's lovely. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. Is there anyone else who'd be brave enough, I don't bite, brave enough to share their work.
Milka has done the same thing as I did, which is say that we weren't going to create something and then get sucked in and inspired.
Yes, this is something funny for the end. Okay, I made this together with my 8 years old daughter.
Is she working with you?
Yes, she was here.
Lovely.
If you can see.
Oh, very nice.
It is textile and paper and drawing. So, okay, it's not, but this is what we have.
I think? There's 2 things that are really clever. Could you hold that up for me? There's 2 things that I think are really clever, and I just want to point them out. Okay. Do you see the way you've done the window frame there? Do you see the way the black lines, the black lines of the window frame?
Okay.
Is that with? Did you do that with crepe paper? Because it seems to be kind of raised up a little bit. I think that's quite a nice little nifty device, that. The second thing I like about it is the tree here, that you've cut that out and you've drawn back over it. I think that's quite nifty too. So yeah, I actually used similar in one of the examples I showed you, and I think it's nice to have, say, like if you have a window, to have it kind of a little bit raised up like that. So yeah, good, well done.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so what I might do is I might actually show you how to put them together then. And again, it's not, you don't have to necessarily put them together. So I'm going to just show you some examples. Okay, so you can see that these are the interior sort of scenes that I was given as an option. Now, combining images. So combining your image, you may combine all 3 of your images to create a collage scene of them. However, and this applies to you, Anna Byrne, 2 of them will work just fine also. You don't have to combine the 3. This isn't a process. And I find when I'm working like this that I have one idea in my head and I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I'll definitely do a portrait, and then suddenly it turns into something else. And that's kind of part of it, you know. I use PVA glue. So I use this kind of PVA glue, but I also use stuff like, and I don't know if you can see my picture, I use kind of masking tape or tape at the back of my images to give your collage more strength, and it helps you kind of get your pieces, meshes them together better. To bear in mind, say, the edges of your artwork, they can actually be torn, which is kind of nice and loose, you know. So printmakers are fond of something called a deckled edge, and we love saying tearing. So I was having this conversation with you, Jane Cassidy. You never use a scissors. You always have that deckled edge. It's just like something that's you really focus in on. But when you're putting your collage together, to kind of consider the edge, you can tear your edge or you can cut it. And I sometimes think a torn edge can be really rather interesting because, again, of that loss of control, that you haven't completely, you don't have a complete control over your work. It's actually a softer way of working than, say, something that's cut with a scissors. You can collage and paint back over your scene. So you can actually collage and paint right back over your scene if you want as well. And also, the last thing is you may not get your scene completed in the time remaining, or you might decide to put these, because I've worked with the three images or the 4 bits of paper for a reason. You might decide to come back to it later, and that's okay. It's a process-based activity, and the focus should really be on experimentation. Okay, so I just have some examples here that I've put the 3 images together. So you can see my watercolor scene here with the sort of salt and the speckles. Then I've got my lovely lake that I like to swim in all summer long. I swim, 2 kilometers every day in this lake. It was, some days the water was like glass. It was amazing. So I put that in the background because I really do feel at home in the water. I'm very happy camper in the water. And then after I go for my swim, I always love a nice warm cup of tea, either ginger tea or normal Irish tea. So yeah, so that's my idea of home. So that I'm really, really happy doing things like this, you know, and I feel like I've earned that cup of tea by being in the cold water. This is another one. This is the Galway scene. It's kind of, I suppose it's inspired by, say, the place in Galway called the Long Walk, where there's all these higgledy-piggledy houses. This could either be a tablecloth or maybe it could be the river. It's not very representational. And it's just about to lash rain. So it's always raining in Galway. So of course it's about to lash rain, and your hands and your ears are normally cold. So she's wearing a nice warm scarf. So that's kind of a portrait of me walking up to town, maybe thinking of days when the shops might actually be open, because Ireland is in complete lockdown at the moment. So when you go uptown at the moment, instead of like it being busy with loads and loads of people, there's nobody around, and none of the pubs, shops or restaurants are open. So it's very strange, but yeah, things that will kind of come back to normal soon. This is another sort of example. So you've got like the summer sky in the background. Another place I love being in is the woods on, say, a warm day, and the smell of pine in there. I just absolutely love it. And I've kind of used the technique, the girl from Serbia, is it Serbia? So these are the kind of, see the bits of the crepe paper. The windows done very simply. Sometimes the most simple things can actually be the more effective things. This is done with crepe paper stuck on, and I actually just painted a little bit of paint back over that. Yeah, and again, it's just a very few very, very simple elements. And this is another example. So I saw one of you actually using kind of a curtain at the edge of it, you know, so I did that with the paint, you know. So one of my earlier images, so is it this, where is it, this one here? See this one? So I did it there, and I said, oh yeah, I've done a curtain at the edge, but like then when I would try to collage them together, it wasn't going to work. It didn't work. So I just put another bit of paper over it and lengthened it. So again, work with your mistakes, and don't be afraid to change something if you need to change it. And I drew back into that with pen, and these are them all kind of put together. So so these are just your examples of that you may put together. Now again, just to remind you, you can collage 2 images together. That's completely fine. You don't have to collage all 3, because sometimes your work kind of goes down in different kind of directions and things like that. So has anyone kind of, so yeah, I might just bear in mind the kind of like the tape at the back. The tape at the back is kind of a good one. Can people see what I'm doing in the small screen at the side? Yeah, I can't hear anyone, but raise your hand if you can see the tape.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can see I've used a lot of tape at the side just to kind of put to, that can kind of hold them together while your PVA glue is kind of drying, because I found that problematic before, and I just find masking tape is great. It's great stuff. Okay, so we might do the last bit then, unless anyone is, and again, just remind you, feel completely free to ask me questions in the chat as well. That's what I'm here for. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, we'll go into the last bit. Sometimes, oh yeah, one last thing. Sometimes it can be good if the masking tape isn't working. Sometimes I actually stick a bit of paper, like I stick my 3 bits of paper or my 2 bits of paper onto another sheet, and that can work very well, particularly if your paper isn't the thickest paper in the world. You know, you can actually stick them on another bit of paper, like things like wallpaper lining. It's really, really cheap, like, and you can actually stick bits of paper onto that, and it's very, very effective. It's something that I use the whole time when I'm working with groups and stuff. Yeah. Okay. Hey, just put on a little bit. I'll put on a bit of music, maybe.
Has lots of plants, so I
Yeah.
used a load of leaves that I've been drying, and I cut them up, but they look like seaweed, and I can't draw a landscape. I drew a really bad landscape, so then I went abstract instead. Landscape is so hard, so now it just looks like seaweed, but it's okay.
So yeah, I think I'm going to try and stick these guys together and see how I get on. Okay. I'm not going to get my piece finished, by the way, but that's grand.
Can we so if I want to send this to someone in Europe as part of the postcard project, how do I do that?
I think you'll be fine because you're based quite near. So Nolag at the volunteer hub in Galway will be pairing up postcards next week. So if you can get the postcard to him over the weekend or early next week, and we know that you're doing that, and he will pair you with one of the postcards that has been sent from another European country. And then when you receive their postcard, you can then continue your exchange directly. I will drop in the chat the instructions where you can find the instructions for that. It would be fantastic if you did. That'd be lovely.
Yeah. It'd be lovely, geez, because it's like if I got that in the post now, I'd be well happy with that.
Yeah.
And I'd be putting
You're bringing it out in me, Jennifer.
Huh?
You bring it out in me. Yeah, I don't normally work with salter cutting leaves, so it's fun.
Yeah.
But I have to go, but I'm thrilled. I've been having a good time. It's so great seeing everybody's work.
Yeah, it is lovely that people are sharing their work too. You know, it's nice because it's nice if everyone's working with the same kind of brief. You know, I suppose when you're teaching online, it's quite a different kind of ball game because you kind of, you know, you kind of sort of stick to a slightly narrower brief. But people in this workshop have been really very creative, and they've actually really gone in lots of different directions, which has been really lovely to see that, you know. So I suppose this is kind of put together, but it's not fully finished either.
Jane, before you go, the link in the chat now that says join postcards from home, there's PDFs in lots of different languages, including English and Irish, in fact, with the instructions about the postal exchange. But as I say, if you can get it to the volunteer hub in Galway this week, then with your address, your return address as well, then we'd be very happy to include you in the exchange. I also like what you've done with leaves because I've done the same in the piece that I put together.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, so I guess we could actually maybe we could have maybe ask people to maybe share the work for the last few minutes because there is only a few more minutes to go. I'd love to see everyone's work and see how people have done it. So I suppose I can go first, I guess. So I just stuck, can people see that? I just stuck these three together, my sky and my house and my sort of interior sort of scene, the three of them to kind of together. I didn't have time to kind of do a window. I wanted to do a black window on this, like the lady from Serbia, I think I did, you know, I kind of like the black window, the black framing and stuff, but I didn't have time, but that works kind of fairly okay as is. Ooh, nice job, very good. Yeah, that's cool. That works really nice. It's kind of got a feeling of I like the darkness outside actually in the pattern paper. It's well cool. Yeah, it's lovely.
It's really
Yeah.
the kind of weather we have the last few days, though. It's grayish, dark.
Grayish kind of, yeah. They say, my dad had this saying actually, the only difference between summer and winter in Ireland is in summer the rain is warmer. Do you know? Yeah, so I'm sure. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, I like the salt and the splashing that you've done on that. That's well cool. Yeah, it's lovely. Excellent. It's gorgeous.
Thanks.
Lovely.
Yeah, the orange on the horizon is really beautiful in that.
That is, yeah.
My middle section of paper I took the wrong way, so I just cut it out and stuck it on. And it's my lockdown walk. I live in the country, so there's a walk.
Fabulous.
It's always grey and okay as well. So
like Ireland.
Like Ireland, just the same.
Like
sure.
Ireland, yeah.
So what I did is I continued and kind of abstracted it a little.
Yeah.
Continued the window up into the other piece, but I don't know, has it really worked?
It's kind of, do you know what it reminds me more of? It reminds me more of a picture frame rather than a window now. That's
Yeah.
what it looks like. She kind of had stuff collaged along the sides of hers, which I think could possibly work with yours, because if you hold yours up,
yeah,
a bit of paint back over it, it needs something to join or balance it on. One side you've got the picture, but I think it needs something on the other side as well, maybe. Yeah, on that side. So if you even got a bit of paper, like say like the base and torch, and stuck it right up that side, it might kind of unify it a bit more, because you'd have something going across all 3 layers of paper. You have something continuous going across a lot of it, which might kind of just mesh it together, just even in an abstract fashion.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I've really enjoyed the workshop. It's been really, really good. I've really enjoyed, and the time has flown.
Time is the time is like goes so fast with these things. I don't know, it seems to go really slow to start and then it flies. Flies. So thanks for sharing that. Is there any other participant who'd be willing to share their work? Have we got everyone?
To Claire's, of course, now. I'm very curious to Claire's work.
Show it again properly.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it properly. Yeah, hold it.
I think it's because I've got this Amateo backdrop.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Can you hold it up more?
Yeah, I need to talk at the same time, don't I? Okay.
Wow, beautiful, Claire.
Okay. So yeah, very, very, very inspired by your session, and it felt very, very calming throughout as well. It was lovely.
Oh, now the sound is cool.
No, thanks for playing the music as well. I think the music, I always find when I'm painting that I need to kind of have background music on. I find it really helps my process and helps me get into a very specific kind of space, especially music that doesn't have overly heavily dialogue. It's kind of can be quite good, Yeah.
I mean, I think please do provide feedback. The feedback that you've given during the session, everybody has been really helpful. But this is the first of the postcards from home workshops, and I think it's gone really, really well. And everyone's been very flexible and adapted to what the possibilities are and limitations. But it's been great, and as I say, we really appreciate any comments. But thank you very, very much, Jennifer, and thank you everyone for joining, and Milka and Guido and all the support of the team as well.
I think we'll wrap up now, guys. So thank you very, very much for giving up your Friday night. It's been lovely, actually really rewarding working with you and just seeing all the different ways that everyone's worked. You can maybe repeat some of the ideas in this workshop in your own time, because sometimes the second time you do something, it can kind of work better as well. But just be prepared for those sorts of surprises as well, you know, to be that kind of, there's kind of like a nice balance between sort of being kind of loose and free and kind of having an idea in your head. I always feel like being an artist is kind of trying to walk that fine line between that loss of control and actually being controlled as well. There's kind of, it's the funny process that goes on at times, you know. So thank you very, very much. Yeah.
Wonderful. Feel free to unmute to say goodbye, everyone, and goodbye.
So
Have a good weekend.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
See you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.